An inspector had arrived on the island of Sodor to check things out. An engine from the other railway had brought along a coach to show him around. The inspector liked the railway. So did the engine. He was intrigued to find out more about the railway. The Sodor engines were pleased to have someone to talk to. They liked telling the new engine about stories on their railway. The new engine especially liked the stories about Duck and Diesel. He heard about how Diesel had tricked Duck, and Sir Topham Hatt had sent him to go away. He also heard about how Diesel had been found out by Sir Topham Hatt, and how Diesel had been sent to go back to the other railway. After hearing these stories, the engine decided that trusting Diesels was not a good idea. He never would trust a Diesel again, he vowed. One day, the inspector decided he would go look at the transfer yard. This was where loads were transferred from the main railway to the narrow gauge railway. The engine saw Duncan pulling some coaches. "Hello," he said. "Hello," replied Duncan. Then the engine noticed Rusty working in the distance. "Why is that Diesel on your railway?" he asked. "He's Rusty. He works here." "Diesels are not trustworthy," he said. "He could be plotting something against you, a revolution of sorts." Duncan thought about this for a moment. He too had heard the story of Duck and Diesel. "Well, thanks for warning me. I'll look into it," he said. Then it was time for the inspector to leave. The engine puffed away. Duncan thought about what the engine had said. Could Rusty really be plotting against the steam engines? He had worked with Rusty for years. It didn't seem likely. But then he remembered Diesel, and Ari and Bert, and all the other Diesels that were on the main railway. "Rusty must be plotting something against us. He's a Diesel. He is evil," he said. "I've got to warn the other engines." Just then, his chance came. Sir Handel puffed in with some empty freight cars. "Hello, Duncan. What's the matter with you?" "It's Rusty. I think he's plotting a revolution against the steam engines." "Rusty? Are you sure?" "Think about it. Think of all the stories we've heard from Thomas and Percy about the evil Diesels on their railway. Rusty must be evil too." "No," said Sir Handel. "I've got to find Peter Sam and the other engines and warn them." He left the freight cars and chuffed away to find the other engine. Peter Sam was at the water tower when Sir Handel found him. Sir Handel told Peter Sam everything that Duncan had told him. "That's not good," said Peter Sam. Scarloni and Rheneas were resting on some sidings. Peter Sam pulled up. He told them everything Sir Handel had said, which Duncan had said, which the engine from the other railway had said. "Do you really think Rusty's plotting a revolution?" said Rheneas. "Of course, that's what Sir Handel said, which is what Duncan said, which is what the engine from the other railway said." "Yes, you've told us," said Scarloni. "I'm not so sure, though. I've known Rusty for years. I don't think he'd do anything to hurt us." "That's probably part of his cover," said Peter Sam. "He'll strike when we're least expecting it." Rusty, of course, wasn't actually plotting anything. He liked the steam engines very much. He was good friends with most of them. For the next few days, Rusty noticed that the other steam engines were avoiding him as much as possible. Phew! They seemed to tense up whenever he got near them. That was close. Eventually, one day, Rusty got close enough to Rheneas to ask him a few questions. "Why do you guys keep avoiding me?" said Rusty. "Is anything wrong?" "Ah! Stay away from me!" said Rheneas, and he chuffed away as quickly as he could. Rusty was very confused. "What's going on?" he said. "That's very unhelpful when they just say, 'Ah, get away from me,' and don't tell you anything useful." "Hang on a minute," he thought, remembering the stories that Thomas and Percy had told him about Diesel. "They must think I'm plotting against them. I'm not. Who could have told him that ridiculous idea? Then it hit him. Duncan, he said. Of course. It's always Duncan. Or Sir Handel, but mostly Duncan. I'll never get close enough to any of them to protest my innocence. If they don't trust me, then it's best that I just leave. And so, that's what he decided to do. All that night, Rusty searched for somewhere he could hide. Eventually, he came upon an old line. It was covered up by a tree. Rusty decided to see what was down there. He pushed the tree aside and went on the line. The line was rickety and not often used. It took him over bridges, down hills, and through tunnels, until at last he arrived on the Arlesdale Railway. How in the world did I get here? Said Rusty. That line must be really old. I've never seen a connecting line between our railway and the Arlesdale Railway on any maps. Well, I guess it's as good a place as any to hide, he said. So he chuffed onto a siding and went to sleep. The next morning, Mike woke up and went onto the turntable to turn around and get ready for work. As he was turning, he saw Rusty sitting on the siding. How in the world did you get here? Said Mike. He puffed over there. Rusty woke up. Oh, hi Mike. What are you doing here? How'd you get here? I'll tell you, said Rusty. And he did. He told them about what Rheneas had said, and how all the engines were avoiding him, and how he had run away and found the old line to the Arlesdale Railway. Said Mike. Sounds like a trust problem. Well, I've got to go. I'm working with some scientists today. They recently discovered a new chemical that when mixed with coal causes the coal to burn extremely fast. Okay, said Rusty. Then he had an idea. Wait, said Rusty. I've got an idea. And he whispered something to Mike. That will certainly get them to trust you again, said Mike. I'll arrange it with the controller. And he chuffed away. Later that morning, Frank brought down his load of coal from the mountains. A few minutes later, Duck arrived and pushed his freight cars under the chute. Frank pushed his cars of coal up the hill and onto the chute. Soon, the loads of coal went from the cars on the top of the chute, through the bottom of the cars, and into the cars at the bottom of the chute. Duck left to deliver the coal to the narrow gauge railway. Then Peter Sam chuffed away to distribute the coal throughout the narrow gauge railway. You've all known Rusty for years, said Duke. Has he ever tried to do anything to you? Well, no, they replied, but nothing, said Duke. If he was going to kill us, he'd have made a move by now. Besides, Rusty is not that kind of engine. I can just tell, just by knowing him. The engines knew he was right. Meanwhile, the passengers at the station were getting impatient. Where's Skarloey? They said. He's supposed to take our train. Sir Topham Hatt was one of the passengers, along with Lady Hatt and their grandson, and the inspector. Just then, Skarloey arrived. Sorry I'm late, he said. I had to fill up on coal. Get inside, please. The passengers did gladly. Soon, Skarloey was off. But they had not gone very far, when suddenly Skarloey stopped. "What's going on here?" said Sir Topham Hatt. "I'm out of coal," said Skarloey. The driver came out. "You passengers can get out and enjoy the view if you want," he said. "We'll be here a while." The passengers did get out, but not to enjoy the view. They got out to complain to Sir Topham Hatt about what a bad railway this was. "You can't blame me," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I don't even own this railway." "Oh yeah," they said. "Well," said the driver, "I'll just have to call another engine and have them bring some coal to us." So he dialed on his cell phone and called Rheneas. "Yes? Yes, we're out of coal. Could you bring some to us?" "What? Really? Okay, well, thanks anyways. Bye." "What'd they say?" asked the passengers. "Rheneas is out of coal too," said the driver. "I'll try another engine." So he called Peter Sam. "Hello? Yes, Skarloey is out of coal. Do you think you could—" "What? You're out of coal too?" "Ugh. Well then, I'll try someone else." "He's out of coal too." "This is ridiculous," said the passengers. "Keep going." The driver called every engine. Sir Handel, Duke, Duncan, Ivel Hugh, and Mighty Mac. But they were all out of coal. "Well, there's only one engine left to call," he said. "Not Rusty," said Skarloey. "He's the only chance," said the driver. "I don't care if he's plotting against the steam engines. Right now, we're out of coal, and the passengers are more important." "I guess you're right," said Skarloey. "Go ahead and call him." "Hello? Yes, is this Rusty's driver? Skarloey is out of coal. Do you think you could bring some coal to us? You can? Great! Thanks." "He's on his way," said the driver. "Oh, good," said Skarloey. "I just hope he doesn't kill me." "Nonsense," said the driver. "He would never do that." "What's all this about?" said Sir Topham Hatt. "Kidding? I know Rusty, even though I don't own this railway. He wouldn't kill anyone, especially not his fellow engines." Skarloey told him what Peter Sam had said, which is what Sir Handel had said, which is what Duncan had said, which is what the engine from the other railway had said. The inspector laughed. "That engine is so nonsensical," he said. "You can't trust a word he says. Trust me on that." Soon, Rusty arrived with the coal for Skarloey. "Oh, thank you, Rusty." "No problem," said Rusty. "And hey, listen," said Skarloey. "I'm sorry for doubting you. I fully trust you, and I'm sure the other engines will once they see how useful you really are." "Thanks," said Rusty. Only he and the Arlesdale engines would ever know the secret about the quick-burning coal, the trick Rusty and Mike had played on the other engines, so that they would trust Rusty once more.